This time on War Junk World War I, we're exploring and investigating the battlefields of the Somme. An area of France where one of the largest and bloodiest battles took place between July and November 1916, including one of the worst days in military history. We're investigating the war junk left behind to see if we can solve a few mysteries about the battle. What can the team dig up in a 100-year-old German tunnel?
That's some serious war junk.
Can we put a face to a name of a soldier who left his mark nearly a century ago? And can we unite two artifacts separated since the Great War ended? This is War Junk World War I.
I'm Professor David O'Keefe.
And I'm history buff and filmmaker Wayne Abbott.
Together, we travel the globe searching for war junk.
Remnants, artifacts, anything left over on the battlefield.
Some big, some small.
All with a story to tell.
And a mystery or two to solve along the way.
So do you think we can get to the place?
I think we can. It all depends on how accurate this map from 1916 still is.
I'm sure it's fine.
Yeah, I think right up here on the left.
A little muddy here. There's the crater back there.
Where the trees are.
Where the trees are. The spot, I think, is somewhere close to here.
So basically, we are now on the British front lines.
In the Somme of 1916. Our first objective was to actually find the exact spot that a British cameraman on July 1st, 1916, stood and captured the first second that the Battle of the Somme began. Do you have a photo?
Yeah, I've got it here.
The British cameraman Geoffrey Mallins, using an old crank camera, had orders to capture the opening attack of the Battle of the Somme. Where he exactly stood to film this epic moment has always been disputed, but we feel we are close to the spot.
If we position the side of the ridge here with where we're standing, and those trees over there, that's the crater, which are represented here by that explosion.
So let me set up, and I think I can frame the shot exactly the way Geoffrey Mallins did at 7:20 a.m. on the morning of July 1st, 1916.
And then this ridge line to our left is almost perfect. You can imagine what it would have been like if you were the Germans and actually saw him setting up his camera. You'd have no clue what was about to happen. I mean, for weeks, British engineers had tunneled under the ridge and had dug out this massive cavern, packed it full of explosives, and right at H hour on the first day of the Battle of the Somme, boom. This was the first of many underground mine explosions on July 1st that destroyed strong German defensive positions. This site has become known as Hawthorne Crater. Welcome to the first day of the Battle of the Somme. The Somme battlefield lies 150 kilometers north of Paris and east of the town of Albert. The bloody battle lasted 4.5 months in this area. In total, the Allies suffered 650,000 casualties. Just over 24,000 were Canadian. Following the Hawthorne Crater explosion on July 1st, the British expected a swift victory, but quickly it turned into a bloodbath of epic proportions. 58,000 men were either killed, wounded, or went missing on that one day alone.
But now we're going to a place, though, that saw the action on July 1st, Beaumont Hamel.
Yeah, it's an incredibly special place, particularly for Newfoundlanders and Canadians. And we're going to meet a writer-historian. He says he has an unusual piece of war junk he wants to show us, but what it is, we don't know. Beaumont Hamel is just over the ridge from Hawthorne Crater. This well-preserved battlefield, now known as Newfoundland Memorial Park, witnessed some of the bloodiest fighting on July 1st, 1916. The Royal Newfoundland Regiment, operating under British command, attacked across this field early in the morning. Soon, however, their attack turned into a nightmare. We're hoping that writer and historian Philip Robinson can fill us in with more details.
The Newfoundlanders, when they advanced, they came 2 companies up, a 500-600 meter front, and as they came over the skyline there, they'd have been silhouetted all along the ridgeline. So they, of course, got the full wrath of the German machine guns, riflemen, and artillery.
And they were virtually wiped out here.
Slightly over 800 Newfoundlanders came into the line, and only 110 of those survived unscathed.
So basically everywhere we're standing right now
Would have been littered with dead and wounded.
Hearing the stories from Philip really brought home how deadly the action was here on July 1st, 1916.
You just have to be astonished at their courage.
And this would have been just in the first few hours of the opening day of the Somme.
In the first hour and a half.
First hour and a half. The farther we went in and up the battlefield, you could start to see the German trenches and the features. And of course, there was one area that we really wanted to focus on, a place called Vimy Ridge. The Newfoundlanders attacked down the slope into the German lines. The terrain here gave the Germans the distinct advantage. Vimy Ridge was a formidable defensive position, and it remains much like it was in 1916.
You have this branch off the main ravine, which gave it its name, Vimy Ridge.
So the importance of Vimy Ridge then was essentially being able to bring up reinforcements during battle, evacuate the wounded, bring up ammunition.
With its steep sides and slopes and its chalk structure, you could drive dugouts into it easily.
Prior to coming to Beaumont Hamel, Philip had told us that he had quite the piece of war junk to show us.
And as we went further along the German lines, both Dave and I were getting more and more curious over what he was going to show us.
So those trees over there, that's the Hawthorne crater.
That's the Hawthorne crater over there, that's quite right. And here we are, in fact, entering what was the forward part of the German line at the head of Vimy Ridge. And this is what I brought you to see.
Yes. What the hell is this?
This hatch is covering a shaft that is about 8 meters deep that drops it down into a German tunnel.
So in other words, we can get down, get into this tunnel that'll take us out under no man's land?
That's right. If we lift this section of the hatch, then we have direct access to the shaft.
Did you ever have any camera crews go with you down here?
Never. Nobody's been down for a decade or so.
This was something completely unexpected. We had no idea that we'd have a chance to get down into a tunnel that hadn't seen the light of day in years. Are you ready for an adventure?
Can you believe that hatch? I mean, I just didn't know that's what Philip was going to show us.
I mean, it's right under the front lines, German front lines at Beaumont Hamel, one of the most historic places in Canadian history. And we get a chance to get down into a tunnel that apparently extends out under no man's land. 100-year-old tunnel that very few, if any, people have ever seen.
Our descent into the century-old tunnel will happen tomorrow, but now it's off to another location, just a few kilometers from Beaumont Hamel and Hawthorne Crater, a place with a very unusual name.
So we're going to a place called Ocean Villas in the middle of the Somme.
Yeah, well, actually, the town's real name is Ocean-Villers. But of course, the troops during World War I couldn't pronounce it properly, so they nicknamed it Ocean Villas.
Oh, look at that. We're right here.
There it is. I mean, we really are just off the front line here.
Ocean Villas is a unique place and run by a rather unique lady, Avril Williams. Avril moved here 20 years ago from England, and the Somme is now her home.
Hello.
Hello.
You must be Avril.
I am.
Hi, David O'Keefe.
Oh, nice to meet you.
This is Wayne Abbott.
Hello, Wayne.
Hello, Avril.
Nice
How are
to
you?
meet you.
So my, what a amazing place you have here.
Oh, thank you.
If I'm not mistaken, we are literally just a stone's throw from the front lines, aren't we?
Yeah, we're what we call a frontline village.
So during the war, or during the Battle of the Somme, what was this house used for?
In 1914, when the French pushed the Germans back, they occupied Ocean Villas and made it a redoubt, an underground fortress for the French.
So the whole area then was essentially turned into one giant fortress.
Or the whole village. I have to tell you, we have a trench as well.
You have a trench. Ocean Villas was then held by the British during the Battle of the Somme in 1916 and never fell into German hands. Look at this.
And you see, from this, we've discovered how different the trenches were. This is a communication trench.
This is a communication trench linking what to what?
It goes down to the front line, that way
Right
to
there.
Beaumont Hamel. As far as a shell would go, which was 4 miles, they had to have trenches.
So basically this was not a fighting trench,
No.
this is what they used to get up to
and
the main
down,
lines.
just to protect them from shells or snipers.
This is incredible.
We've put it back exactly as it would have looked on the 1st of July 1916.
Well, it's amazing to be here. I mean, these, you know, we always look at frontline trenches and think about the fighting trenches, but you forget you've got to get up to the trench and you've got to get back. And the whole area was under artillery fire. The idea was then to put in these almost subterranean highways, if you will, that would connect all the way up. And this one comes right by your place.
Absolutely.
Ocean Villas is itself an artifact from World War I. Avril then took us to the cellar of the main building. The foundation is the only part of the town that remains from World War I.
Oh, this is tight. Can I stand up yet? Oh, is this period or was this rebuilt?
No, it's not rebuilt. It's 17th century. The only thing that's been rebuilt is the entrance.
So I've noticed there's etchings on the wall?
Yes, this has given us the history.
Used as a first aid post and makeshift prison, these etchings were made by British soldiers. Avril has researched them and knows their stories.
It's outstanding. This is an incredible living artifact to the battles that went around and the men who served here.
Yeah.
I mean, do you have anything else on your property?
Actually, we've got a museum if you'd like to go and see it.
You've got your own museum here? Mm-hmm. Oh, I'd love to.
This is it.
This is your museum?
Yep.
This is huge. Oh my! I wasn't expecting this. This is huge. Look at the collection you have. When you said you had a museum, I kind of thought something a little smaller, perhaps. How did you get this collection?
Oh, from a number of collectors.
There is so much to Avril's museum, so many rare and unique items. We're about to find one that has a real mystery attached to it.
And this is quite intriguing.
Really?
Yeah, because it's got all sorts of markings on it.
We have a name here, and it looks like it's etched in, and it says L. Stokes, and we've got a service number. And then at the top, it looks like it has 116 BN, so the 116th Battalion. So you haven't done any research on this at all?
No, nothing.
So other than what we have marked on here, this is a complete mystery for you.
Yeah.
If you don't mind, we'd like to take some photos of this, and then we will process it, and we'll see what we come up with.
First order of business, figuring out what the item really is. We already have 3 pieces of evidence: name, service number, and battalion.
Oh, gosh.
I mean,
that's quite something.
It could be a compass case, because look, it has actually like
felt?
A felt inside. I see something else here, guys. I mean, just above the name here, I see out, O-U-T.
Well, yeah, you're right, eh? Yeah. O-U-T. Look at that.
Get a picture.
The markings on the case are overlapping. It makes it difficult to read, but then we make a significant discovery. S-C-O-U-T, Scout.
What's this then?
What? That's a BN. He was the battalion scout.
That's a 4th piece of evidence.
I mean, this really makes this something special.
It is.
And it would make sense why he would have a compass, right? If he's out there scouting about, he's going to have to mark things down. He's going to need one of these.
This is an unbelievable artifact with this much information.
Well, Mr. Stokes, maybe your compass case will tell us a story.
As our research team tries to solve the mystery behind the leather case, we are about to explore uncharted territory, the German tunnel at Beaumont Hamel.
Take that. So, you ready for the day?
I'll be honest, I'm anxious. There is a lot of danger associated with what we're doing today. It does sound like a fairly narrow entrance.
But also the potential natural dangers going down of collapse, methane gas, lack of oxygen. I mean, this isn't something we faced before. And we're only going to be 5 stories underground, so don't worry about it. When we arrive at the site, Philip Robinson and his team of tunnel investigators from the UK-based Duran Group have already begun to set up. They're going to make sure that we get safely down the tunnel and hopefully back up. First job, however, is to get the old rusty hatch off. 10 years since they last popped this hatch. Looks like the hinge might be a bit rusted, but it's not giving.
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Ready? Yeah. When I first looked at it, it did seem bigger than what Philip was saying. We're going down there?
That's the idea.
The thing that got me, though, was just the fact that when you look down, you couldn't see the bottom, and it just went into this dark abyss.
This is the cross-section of the tunnel. First, we have to drop down a 30-foot rabbit hole. Then we have to scramble down a steep slope before we can finally access the tunnel floor. Paul Allison, the safety director from the Duran Group, gives us some comforting final instructions.
Traditional things like rockfall, collapse are highly unlikely in here. If anything does happen in the shaft, there are provisions down there for a few days while we dig and get you out. Try not to injure yourself. It's kind of slippy, you can trip over, you can bang your head. If you meet any Germans, tell them the war's over.
It's time to get rigged up. Though it will be a challenging task, we are thrilled to be the first ones to really explore this tunnel.
Game time is about to happen.
What artifacts are down there, we just don't know.
We're good to go?
Yeah.
Let's do it. Hey, boys.
How are you feeling?
Feeling good.
Hey.
A little anxious, but not bad.
This was not the original entrance to the tunnel during the war. A collapse in the 1990s opened up this precarious and rather claustrophobic hole.
So I'm actually at the narrow section right now. It's pretty tight, but should be okay.
Once I get past the narrow section, I find myself at the top of the steep slope.
Oh, I see. There we are. Oh, okay. I'm down.
All right.
We're not too bad.
All I can see ahead of me is eerie darkness. Now I have to wait until Dave gets down. The question is, will he make it?
So what they're going to do is, instead of going down a ladder like everybody else has because of my size and girth, they're going to have to lower me straight down.
I want you to just start going down the ladder. You'll come onto the rope and your weight will transfer onto the rope from the ladder. Big man coming down.
Yeah. Oh, now it's getting skinny. Plenty of butter and oil.
Slow down.
All right.
Push your feet back.
Push your back.
He made it.
This is amazing. This is better than I ever thought. It was well worth the trip down. It was amazing. As soon as I landed, all the nerves just simply subsided, and I just felt I was in my domain. This was incredible. Now I'm living history.
It didn't look like much of the tunnel had fallen in, and it was almost, I think, exactly the same as it was 100 years ago.
Oh, it's very neatly cut, isn't it?
Yeah.
You can just visualize a German sergeant major standing here saying, you know, trim that off, soldier.
Now it's time to see what artifacts remain that may tell the story of what life was really like down here during the war.
Look at this.
Yeah.
Looks like clips of rifle ammunition.
If it's rimless, it's German.
Looks
It
rimless.
is rimless, yes.
The first artifact is indeed German. No surprise, since tunneling began right after the first day of the Battle of the Somme. As we make our way deeper into the tunnel, Philip is able to give us more on its history.
This was probably a listening post.
Why would you need a listening post 5 stories underground?
Almost certainly the reason for this tunnel was a fear that the British miners would be trying to get underneath the German lines at the head of Wye Ravine and blow them there.
So the last thing they wanted was another surprise like they'd had at Hawthorne Crater. Located less than 1 kilometer from Hawthorne Crater, this tunnel was built under no man's land in order to listen for British engineers tunneling towards the German strongpoint at Wye Ravine. These tunnels were extremely important to the underground war. Some artifacts are found immediately, laying on top of the dried up mud floor. Then we discover something very rare.
What have you got, Philip?
Well, you tell me. I haven't seen a bullet like that I can think of. What's that?
Yeah, look at that.
This looks like an unusual bullet.
That was extremely unusual.
You're used to seeing Lee Enfield 303 ammunition, or in this case, German ammunition, but this was something completely different. I had never seen anything like this, and neither had Philip.
It looks to be a narrower cartridge case as well.
Well, we certainly have a war junk history here.
As we continue to explore, more than just rusty pieces of metal appear.
It's a boot.
Look at this, hobnailed. That's a German boot.
The boot was very poignant. Who left it there, who lost it. It was one of the most human or personal artifacts that we found in the tunnel.
After 4.5 months of fighting, the Battle of the Somme ends in November 1916. The British capture the tunnel at this time. It must have been a great victory and relief to finally take control of Y Ravine. What we don't know is if they used the tunnel for any particular purpose. So far, we haven't found any British artifacts. Until, that is, we turn the corner.
Whoa. What's this? Private H. Robertson. 334. I'm not sure if that's a regiment or what that is.
Royal Engineers.
Royal Engineers.
Okay.
Oh. Okay. Oh, wow. J.J. Foley. Oh, even his number. 226-694, it looks like.
Looks like it was written yesterday.
Look at this.
They're all in the...
Is that Cooper?
They even have a date.
11th of February. Looks like 17. Royal Army Medical Corps.
This is tangible proof that the British soldiers indeed occupied this tunnel. But these weren't frontline infantry, mostly rear service troops. Were they exploring like we are now? Or were they using this tunnel to get away from the ceaseless fighting above? Here they have their names, the date they were down there, and their service numbers, plus the units they served with. These are amazing historical signposts.
So more than likely, they were just doing an explorer like we were and thought they would sign their names. And I don't know. It was pretty special to see.
Ready to haul and haul.
Well, that was amazing.
That was a unique
Absolutely.
experience, wasn't it? And the whole area is just strewn with artifacts. I mean, talk about a target-rich environment. This is it.
Mick Hibbard from the Duran Group is their weapons expert.
Now, that's really interesting, because that was made in England.
England?
England?
England, indeed.
This is an English bullet. So you're saying that this was made in England?
Made in England for the Belgian army. We've made it as part of our war aid, sold it to the Belgians, captured by the Germans, and used here.
After finding this unique bullet, we now want to further explore the tunnel.
We're going to do a second expedition down in the tunnel. We're bringing in Craig Mitchell, our teammate, and in a couple of days, we're going to dig up the floor of this tunnel.
Plus, we have another poignant war junk mystery to solve.
We found about, 6 or 7 British soldiers who wrote their names on the side of the tunnel.
Yeah, some from the Royal Army Medical Corps and some from a field construction unit, which was absolutely incredible. And they were down there in 1917.
So we're going to send pictures off to the researchers, and there is enough information that possibly we could put a face to one of those names.
We already have 2 great mysteries to solve in the Somme. We are currently trying to find any information with regards to the soldiers who signed their names on the side of the tunnel. But the etchings on the compass case from Avril's museum have given us a great lead.
Dave,
Yeah.
it's great that you have that there, because look at what I have. Just came in from the research team.
What's it? Oh my God.
That tells us who L. Stokes is.
You got his personnel file. Well, here, look, his regimental number matches up, 775572. And also the battalion he served with, the 116th.
That's right. Can't wait to tell Avril now.
What a huge break to be able to find this much information about one soldier and to find it so quickly.
Well, this Avril is actually his index card in his personnel file, which marked his movements as he went throughout the war.
L. Stokes is actually Lester Stokes from Ontario.
So did he survive?
He did. There's his number, 775572. It's exactly the same one.
His battalion was at Vimy. It was also at Hill 70, and later on in Passchendaele, where he won the Military Medal for Bravery, which you can see noted here.
Here
Brave man.
is Lester Stokes.
And he's how old? He can't be very old.
Lester Stokes lived till he was 100 years old.
Wow.
Well, this belongs to the family. What stories he could tell.
As we search for more information about Lester Stokes and hopefully locate his family,
We're going to meet up with Craig Mitchell, teammate and experienced digger.
Have you searched or dug in a tunnel before?
I've been in plenty of tunnels, but I've never had an opportunity to search or dig in one.
you're not claustrophobic, are you?
No.
That's how we get in, and hopefully how we get out.
A 7.7 metre drop through a tiny little hole.
Yeah, but Dave made it.
Oh, in that case, I'm a little bit more optimistic now.
And prepare for our second expedition into the tunnel at Beaumont Hamel.
Today, what we want to do is take Craig Mitchell down into the tunnel with his metal detector, scour the entire tunnel, and just see what artifacts have been buried in this area for 100 years.
It's quite a substantial hole you've got there, isn't it?
The caked mud along the floor is approximately 6 to 12 inches deep.
Here we go again, boys.
On our first expedition, we found a variety of artifacts. We really want to try and find family members of one of the British soldiers who signed his name in the tunnel in 1917. Also, we're hoping to discover more fascinating artifacts as we are the first to investigate the mud floor of the tunnel. But of course, we have to be extremely careful.
The main danger down here would be live grenades or ordnance and stuff, so that's going to give you a very loud iron sound. If we hear a big beat that sounds iron, we're going to take that very seriously.
Yeah, certainly we have to. I mean, one thing that we were told was that at the end of the war, when these were sealed up, sometimes they just dump munitions in, so we really don't know what we're getting into here.
We decide to go through the tunnel systematically, moving from one end to the other.
I was shocked right off the bat where we only went about 5 feet and Craig got 4 hits.
Yeah, I think it's somewhere in about here, I think it is.
Craig has hit after hit as we move through the tunnel, but then we come across something that concerns him.
I'm just going to leave that as a marker then, make sure nobody tramples anywhere near this, and we'll take a little look at it later on.
As Craig scours the tunnel with his metal detector, there is no doubt that this is a target-rich environment.
How many flags did we put down then?
I've got 2 left in my hand, so almost 20.
No, I think it's probably best if we start where the closest one and work back to the tunnel where we came in. It's a clip of bullets, isn't it?
Look at that. Almost 100 years down here.
So we've got 2 clips there, look at that. One on the underside, one on the top, 10 bullets.
We pulled 1 bullet cartridge out, and then as Craig continued digging, there was a second, a third, and even a 4th. So in just one little section, somebody must have, 100 years ago, placed a number of cartridges on the bottom of the tunnel, and then the mud came in and covered it until today when we discovered it.
We continued the dig and uncovered everything from food cans to buttons to things we couldn't decipher. We backtracked to where Craig marked the target that concerned him.
I don't know what it is. It could be anything, but just want to be a bit careful about it.
He started to move around and then suddenly jump back and wouldn't touch it anymore. I realized we were dealing with some sort of an explosive.
I think we should just take a picture of it. I don't really want to move this much further, actually. I'm very concerned about this.
I mean, to me, it just looked like a rock, but Craig was really nervous, and there was a good reason why.
Well, it's about 65 mil across by approximately, 90 millimeters long. There's something circular at the bottom there that looks very sort of distinct. I think this shares a lot of the hallmarks to a grenade.
To think that we were walking unknowingly over this grenade just a couple of days earlier in our first expedition kind of brought the point home as just how dangerous what we are doing really is.
To get confirmation, we asked Matt from the Duran group to come in, and sure enough, there was no doubt this thing could go boom.
This is almost certainly a Mills bomb. You can almost see the sort of cross-hatching on it if you look closely. This will be okay as long as we don't touch it. We'll all back out of here. Been incredibly careful where you step. If it went off, we'd be in trouble.
This is quite a discovery. A British grenade buried in a German tunnel. If munitions were indeed stored here after the war, there could be more.
The last section we focused in on was around the boot. And believe me, I had no clue what we were about to uncover.
It's just... What the hell is this?
Am I holding what I think I'm holding? Oh, great. I'm holding?
And I literally was just about to toss this thing over my shoulder when I realized it was just too uniform in size.
As carefully as you can.
I don't know, it might be a grenade. It looks like it's got a
fuse at the bottom.
Looks like there's a fuse.
Could this be another grenade? And is it British or German? Having found potentially 2 deadly pieces of war junk in the tunnel, we feel that it's best we get back up and confer with the experts. Then Dave spots something on the ground near us.
Wait a second. I'm seeing it. Look at this.
What does that look like to you?
We got a pistol. That's the clip. There's the bullet.
There's bullets on the top of it.
still in place nearly 100 years later.
Woo! Are you kidding me?
Just lying here in the corner right next to the German boot.
This is a unique thing to find in this area, particularly this design. We certainly found some unique war junk. Now we're hoping that the experts from the Duran Group can shed some light on these artifacts. The first thing are the bullets. This is what we brought up.
Yep.
And we found them in a grouping of 4.
They are British 303-inch Mark 7 ball rounds in a charger.
So a stack of British cartridges in a German tunnel. It shows that the Brits may have been down there to do a little bit more than just explore. We were also very intrigued by the pistol.
Have a look at this.
What do you think?
Right, it's a very typical 7.65 German officer's sidearm. Generally, it was in a holster with the gun and a spare clip sitting down in a pocket in the holster like that.
Officers didn't just drop their pistols any old how. One wonders whether this was a German officer who realized he was going to be forced to surrender, so he took his sidearm off and dropped it.
And then we showed them a picture of the last mysterious piece we found. There was one more thing that we found down there that, frankly, we need your help for.
That is very nice, very interesting.
Is that what we think it is?
That is a grenade, and that is a German grenade. It's what is known as a ball grenade, or its correct name is a Kugel grenade, K-U-G-E-L.
But what kind of charge would have been in there if it went off?
A couple of ounces of high explosive, and certainly enough to ruin your day.
What great discoveries, both British and German. It is clear that the British accessed the tunnel after Y Ravine fell in November 1916. Though it doesn't appear they used it for any significant military purpose, what we did find seems to indicate that they used the tunnel to explore and perhaps get away from the nightmare up above, some of them taking the time to etch their names on the tunnel walls. And speaking of signatures, we just got a new lead.
When Dave and I were packing up the Land Rover, an email came in. And wouldn't you know it, we got incredible news.
Our research team just this moment found the great-nephew of J.J. Foley, one of the soldiers who left his mark on the tunnel wall. If we could bring J.J. Foley's great-nephew here to Beaumont Hamel, that would be just an incredible moment.
Although the Battle of the Somme officially ended in November 1916, the fighting in this area continued until the last days of the war in 1918. The scars of battle can still be seen to this day, especially here in Newfoundland Memorial Park.
It's been over 6 months since we were in the Somme last, but we had to come back for one very good reason.
We have a new development in the leather compass case story. We found the son of Lester Stokes. He has come from Chatham, Ontario to the Somme to meet Avril Williams.
Now, Jim and his wife, Ruth, know nothing about the leather compass case that we have of Lester's that's with Avril at her museum.
And what we're hoping to do is finally reunite the compass case with Jim.
Jim and Ruth are both retired Army officers. We visit a cemetery near Avril's museum so they can pay their respects.
This is actually, this cemetery we're in right now, Pozières, is one of the largest in this area. And it really is a representation of all the Allied soldiers that fought around here. So how much do you know about your father's experiences?
Our den where he used to talk with his veteran friends that would come to visit. You could sit right at the edge in the hall, and if you kept your mouth shut, you could learn a great deal.
The children, even the grandchildren, would sit quietly and listen to what Papa was talking about. So it included the whole family, which was wonderful to see.
One thing that was remarkable is when he started to talk about his father's role in the 116th Battalion. His father was a scout, and of course we knew right away how important the compass would be to the scout. He had to get out into no man's land. He had to tape routes for the battalion to follow. And better yet, during raids, he had to use that compass to get them back home safely.
Every time that he went out was a chance that something could happen to him.
And that's why he had that compass that we've got with us that he brought back.
So you brought the compass with you then?
Yes, yes.
Jim brought a compass with him. This is not something that Dave and I expected.
It would be fair to say then that this was perhaps his most cherished memento?
cherished is a good word, but necessary is a better one. He had to have that as a scout. He used to hold it in his hand in the later years. It was his prized possession, yes, but he always said it was the most necessary thing he had in the battlefield.
The first thing we did is we wanted to introduce Jim and Ruth to Avril. Now, the great thing is Jim doesn't know the item that Avril has, and Avril doesn't know that Jim has a compass.
The only question is whether this compass actually would fit that case. Avril Williams, I would like you to meet Ruth and Jim Stokes.
Hello, nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you.
Jim is the son of Lester Stokes.
Oh, right.
We held back just to let Avril and Jim have their moment and see what happens when Jim actually sees the compass case for the first time.
Right. I believe he was a scout.
Yes.
And this is the compass case.
Right.
With his name on it.
There's something missing, isn't it?
Oh, the compass.
You're kidding. The compass is missing.
You haven't got the compass.
77, 55, 72. And my father carried it all his
life.
Right through to the end.
First thing Jim does is compare the markings on both items.
Yes, see the Stokes, the S?
Yeah.
And probably done with a bayonet. Oh, the lettering is the same.
Yeah, look at that.
He probably did it at the same time.
Yeah.
Then he makes a surprising decision.
And I really feel it should go with you and in this case. When Father was talking to us, he'd hold it in his hand and talk to the great-grandchildren, tell them the good things about the war. So may we present this to you?
I don't know what to say. I mean, thank yous just isn't enough.
Oh,
I just think this is lovely.
Well, now it's where it's meant to be with you for other people to look at.
I just can't get over this. It's incredible.
Why don't we see if it still fits?
It goes in perfectly.
And perfectly, back home.
And now, after a century, the Stokes story comes full circle.
I couldn't believe that the compass case survived. It's absolutely fantastic to be able to put something back where it belongs.
This is the first time in nearly 100 years that the compass and its case were together once again.
There was one more thing we had to do. Although Lester survived the war, he lost his elder brother Clifford in February 1917, just a few kilometers from Avril's place. It seems most appropriate to take Jim to the Regina Trench Cemetery, Clifford's final resting place.
There's Clifford. We found Papa's compass case, Clifford, so you don't need to worry about your brother now. He can find his way to find you. Well, Grandma Stokes would be proud that we're back here again. We've looked after both her boys.
On our first expedition down in the tunnel under Beaumont Hamel, we discovered a number of signatures of British soldiers who signed their names after the Battle of the Somme ended when the British captured the tunnel. We found the personnel file of one of those soldiers, J.J. Foley.
It took us a while, but we were finally able to make a breakthrough in the J.J. Foley mystery. We found two of his descendants. We brought J.J. Foley's great-nephew, Brett Bates Sr., and his son, Brett Jr., over from England to the Somme to take them down into the tunnel. So how does it feel to be here?
Surreal. Yeah, very surreal.
So what exactly do you know about J.J. Foley?
All we really know is that he was in the Royal Engineers. We know he was 17 when he signed up, and that's pretty much it.
There are no photographs from the war, but they do have his 2 medals. All we've told them to date is exactly what they're going to experience in getting down into the tunnel. What's in the tunnel to them is a mystery.
You're going underground, and there's a few hazards in there, but I just want to talk to you about the main hazard. You need to monitor yourselves, and if you feel uneasy or unwell, any sort of panic attack coming on, you need to tell Andy, just say to him that you're unhappy and that you want to go out.
Oh my God.
Oxygen is a little low there this morning, I've been in, but it's at a level that's perfectly acceptable.
Coming down.
There are munitions down there, don't touch them.
It's just strange being here knowing that he was here 100 years ago.
Both make it down without any problems. Now it's time to show them what they came here to see.
Okay, gents, this is the beginning. Welcome to the descent in your family history.
Yes, but I wasn't expecting to be under the family tree. I'm excited. I am excited. It's still not real, but it's becoming more real by the moment.
I mean, it's one thing to pick up various forms of war junk off the field, but this was something completely different. Also, they were only going to get a chance to see this once, and once only. So you remember, as we're walking down here, this is the exact route that JJ would have taken in 1917 when he was down here. Okay, gents, we're just about to get to the bend, which takes us to the last part of the tunnel. And you can see, take a look around. And guess what we see?
Oh my God. Look, that's Jack. Yeah. I can't believe how preserved it is.
It was amazing watching them look at the signature of J.J. Foley. It kind of opened up a crack in their family history, and they just jumped right in.
It's unbelievable. Believe it or not, and it is only a signature on the wall, but I actually feel like I know him. He was a name on a piece of paper, really, beforehand. But he did this. He actually did this while he was here. And I don't know what was going through his mind at the time when he was doing it. Hopefully he was down here, as I say, having a cigarette and a beer, leaving his mark. Never, ever expected something like this. This is incredible. It's the closest they're going to get to him nowadays, isn't it? Yeah. Jack and his medals. Well done, Jack.
Just want to keep looking at it because I don't think I'm ever going to get a chance to see it ever again.
Well, at least we got the photograph.
Our journey through the Somme has come to a poignant end. It's quite remarkable being able to reunite lost artifacts with families of soldiers who fought during World War I. It's amazing to think that the Somme still has secrets to give up, even after 100 years.